Hello, I'm Stephanie Gray. This is Jenny Hahn, and we are the founders of Creative Nectar Studio. And we have wanted to do like a podcast type of thing that we would throw up on our YouTube channel for several years now. We just haven't done it. And I think part of what has stopped us is that we've wanted to, we were maybe a little bit wary of just throwing something up and not editing the crap out of it and having, some of our true selves come out, or, maybe not the greatest of lighting, or et cetera, et cetera. But we feel like it's time to do it. And we're calling it Trust the Process because, well, first of all, that's what we do when we work with process art. And this is just going to be us talking about the creative self-discovery journey, how we started. Each episode will be a little bit different. We're not even sure how it's going to go, but creativity will be involved, self-discovery will be involved, and that's about all we know. We don't even know how often we'll post. We're hoping it's going to be a fairly regular situation, but we don't know for sure. So anyway, that's where we're at. And I guess we can just dive right in. What we thought we would do today is talk about how we found process art and what drew us to it and why we continued to stay with it. So, Jenny, do you want to
That's
be on
great,
the
Steph.
hot seat?
I can go
Yeah.
first.
Okay.
Yeah, so wow, that does go back, what, 20 years now?
20 plus, I
20
think.
plus
Yeah.
years. Yeah, for you, even especially, I think you found just before me. That's how Steph and I met originally, was gosh, 20 years ago. Yeah, I was in art school still, or just about to finish art school, and really was seeking and needing something else, something greater, that to bring me home to myself. I was really struggling with some issues and really had a lot of doubt and self-hate. And um, I just remember seeing an advertisement for a group, for this process art group called Paint or Die. Our teacher and mentor, Sarah Oblinger, was teaching in Lawrence, Kansas, and in Kansas City. And this little house on 39th Street in Kansas City, which happened to be Stephanie Gray's home. Those were the beginnings for me. And yeah, the transformations that happened in Stephanie's basement with Sarah and with her. I think it was an 8-week workshop that I originally attended. And yeah, it really rocked my world and stuck with me, because here I was, a trained artist, and yet someone who, I was not in touch with myself. I was in such great need of healing, and yet I knew that creativity uh, is a big part of, can be a big part of healing. And never before had I really used art just for process. There was always at least some form of outer striving or trying to make something look a certain way, or that my work was going to be part of a critique in school, or that it was for a client that needed to meet their approval. And really, I hadn't done a whole lot, other than in my sketchbook. I had done a whole lot of actually like meeting the page just for whatever is wanting to express through me as me, and in leading to deep healing. I mean, really, um, yeah, using art for process, it's not at all about the finished product. It's really about showing up to what is needing expression right now. And for me, there was a whole a whole lifetime of unfelt emotions, unexpressed feelings, trauma, memories, different things that just, and it's not like it was about trying to paint those things, not at all. It was literally more of a meditation of showing up to a blank page and what is wanting to happen in this moment. And I just remember how magical it was,
Mm.
that starting out with a small piece of paper and 8 weeks later having it grow to be as tall as the seal, you know, up to the ceiling, and this whole like allegory of me showed up, and none of it was planned, none of it was pre sketched or thought out or premeditated. It was just, it flowed,
Yeah.
and it was so magical, and it was so different from anything I had experienced, and it obviously stuck with me, because here we are 20 years later. I've been using this process in my own life, of course, and for about the last 10 years have been, you know, sharing it with others as well. And it's just, I don't know of anything that gets to that level of um, the inner alchemy that really can happen, you know, that I know you can relate to, Steph, when we show up to ourselves in that way.
Yeah, and there's something about the creativity part of it, the art part of it, the art making, I should say, part of it, that softens things, and for me at least, it's not
Mhm.
as, it's not as harsh as just digging right into some of the shadowy, stuff that you didn't want to look at and then just like look at it. It's a very gentle process, to be honest. And something about the
Right.
creativity like softens it and brings us into the heart space.
Absolutely brings us into the heart. And yeah, it's not a forceful, like there's been some things I've tried before that really just like go in deep fast. And
Yep.
this is yeah, like you said, this is yeah, there is a gentleness and also like a playfulness that can be brought to it. And really the opportunity to just yeah, go with what you're comfortable with. I,
Yeah.
I I think of it as like almost like meeting my inner child, and like what is she needing right now, and really approaching it from that approach of curiosity and play versus needing to extract something, or you know, like
Yeah, or
I
even
don't know,
fix anything. And
or
I think
fix anything.
I think one of
Yeah.
the things that Sarah really instilled in us was that, there's this big push out there for everyone to fix themselves, that we're all broken and we need to find those broken pieces and fix it. But I think what Sarah in the process instilled in us was like, okay, yes, there may be some things that appear broken, but can I just befriend that, like be aware of it and
Yes.
then befriend it, and then that's wholeness, right? It's not perfection, it's wholeness.
Right,
So,
right. To
and
return to wholeness. Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so what would you say the process and creative self-discovery brings to your life now? It is still like someone may ask you, why aren't you done yet? Like, why are you still doing this? Aren't, it's been 20 years. What could you possibly have left to do? So what would you say to that?
Well, I would say I'm still breathing. So, I mean, as
Yeah.
long as we're still alive in the world, in these bodies, there's, I mean, life is still happening through us. And there's always, I mean, yes, it's helped me work through a lot of things that I wasn't looking at in the past, but life is a continual unfolding process.
Yeah.
And plus, my God, look at the world we're in right now. I mean, there's a lot, there's a lot to be with, and you know, and to meet ourselves in that compassionate way with whatever is showing up. I mean, that's a lifelong journey.
Absolutely. And like you said, especially in the middle of chaotic times or a chaotic situation, a big transformation, or a loss or something in your life, to be able to have the tools to come back to yourself, come home to yourself is a big deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And I I liken it to meditation, like meditation with paint. I mean, it's an active meditation, but meditation is something I will be a part of my life until I take my last breath.
Hmm.
And this is another way to meet whatever's showing up with mindfulness, with compassion, and yeah, that it's not like there's an end point for that. I mean, it is a process.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you, Steph? You want to talk about how you came
Um,
to the process? How?
yeah, I do. Uh, so for me, I had one of my good friends at the time, which is interesting because we're not really friends that much anymore. Like we don't really talk to each other anymore. She's moved away and stuff, but she was such a central figure in my life then. And she handed me this flyer. She's like, "Look what I found. I think you might be interested in this." And it was a flyer for Sarah's Paint or Die process painting, and it was for a weekend workshop. And it was at Unity Temple on the Plaza here in Kansas City, Missouri. And so I don't, it was so unlike me to actually just do it, but I did, and I showed up, and it really pushed my boundaries. Like I was up until that point, and a lot of points after, I was very closed and guarded and up in my head a lot. There was not a lot of getting into my body and figuring out what was going on and really checking in that way. And I didn't meditate. I didn't do any of that stuff. But something drew me in, and by the end of the workshop, I was hooked. And I think why is that I could, I was free to express in the way that felt the most natural to me. I was not an artist. I've never had any training. I hadn't had any training at that point, and so my stuff was very crude. But it still felt, I still felt an aliveness because it was me, like you were talking about. It was just fully me on a piece of paper in front of me, and it was not. It was scary, but it was also exhilarating to see that happen, and it I I don't know. And then something about there was no judging. So when you're doing process art, especially process painting, it's free of judgment. So the people that you're around, you all have, if you're in a situation with other people and the facilitator, there's no judging what you've put on the page. There's no critiquing. There's no sort of analyzing it. It's just, it is what it is. And so to have that freedom and to know that I wasn't going to be mocked or judged or anything like that was pretty amazing. It just felt really good. And so I think it wasn't until after, probably a week or two after, that I really thought, wow, I feel different. I feel lighter, something had shifted. And I probably couldn't put my finger on it at the time, but I knew I wanted to keep doing it. And I couldn't really afford it, but I got a hold of Sarah and I said, "Hey, I've I've got to do this." And so she let me be her studio assistant, and I got to do it, and I haven't looked back since. And I, of course, it's been woven in my life ever since. And it's a tool that I can use now anywhere, just from learning, working with the body, what's happening in your body, and can that come out onto the page? If you're feeling scared, can that jitteriness come out in a scribble? Or, it's a great tool to have to meet myself exactly where I am. And
Mm.
yeah, I was hooked, and I'm still hooked. And I think, um, what it's brought so many different layers to my life. I needed to thaw myself out and I didn't realize it. Like I was walking around numb and didn't realize it. I was guarded and didn't realize it. And then, once you uncover that stuff, then you can uncover more. Like, well, why might I be guarded? It just gently peels back the layers, and you start to unravel things that have been tightly held for so long.
Mhm.
Just a great process, and that's why I still do it, because there's still, like Jenny said, like you said, if I'm still breathing, right? It's like, yeah, exactly. There's always there's always going to be more to uncover. We're these beautiful onions with all these little layers that, yeah.
I,
So it's
yeah,
been an incredible journey so far, and I'm very lit up about having other people know who they truly are too, and getting tools to, bring themselves back home. And I think that's why you and I continue to collaborate and and have nectar together, because we both have that desire.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And especially at times right now, like, being in this pandemic and, uh, with people more staying at home and kind of, it's almost like there's this going inward process happening. And um, I'm curious if you have thoughts on, how this can be useful in this today, in this, in this experience we find ourselves in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I absolutely do. At least I myself, and then the people that I've been, facilitating for a while now, we all have been using the process, in books, in art journal type things. We alter books or we use art journals or whatever. And I mean, when this first started, the pandemic stuff first started, I was just feeling a lot of fear, and that's all I could get past. So um, I basically worked with my fear, and I mean, I it went on so many different pages in so many different ways, and I painted my my biggest fear that was going around in my head, and I got it onto a page. And honestly, since then, I it doesn't rule me anymore. I think about it every once in a while, but
Mhm.
I was able to put it out there and go, okay, yeah, that's really scary. However, in the painting, I ended up being supported by, unseen hands, and it was beautiful. So
Mm.
I just it's important to have tools, and even if it's not a creative tool or whatever. And that's the other thing. This is a very creative process, but at the same time, I find myself, and I don't know about you, but I find myself using the process and the tools I've used at the page outside of, the creative stuff that I do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I think that that again, that sense of curiosity and the trusting the process is something that I have been able to bring to other aspects of my life, whether it's I'm doing something that I've never done before that scares me, or if I'm feeling a need for a sense of control around something that is scary. Yeah, absolutely. It goes beyond the page or beyond, the book. It's like these are life tools that really can support us in meeting the unknown, meeting the present moment, meeting whatever is showing up, and to do it in that really open way of trusting and also not needing to know like where things are going to end up.
Man, that has
So
really
yeah,
helped me. Yeah,
yeah,
because
that
that's
step by step, just trust, moment to moment to moment.
yeah. Uh, One of the things about process art is that you don't have to know what comes next. It doesn't have to make sense. You don't have to have a plan in any sort of, in fact, maybe don't have a plan and see what happens.
Right.
Um, and it's that working in that way and the practice of that has helped me sort of navigate some of this, because man, things have been changing day after day after day. And to just be like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't need to know. I can just be with it. And it's uncomfortable, but I can be with it. And man, this practice has definitely helped with that.
Yes. And my guess is, because we've talked about this before, but like that going back within rather than needing to things to make sense on the outside. Like
Yeah.
there's so much conflicting information and opinions and just there's a lot out there, and it's like, okay, I don't know the answers, but what if I tune into my body? Like, what is true for me right now? I don't need to have tomorrow figured out, but what is true in this moment? And kind of using that inner gauge, and that's something that we use in that we share in workshops as well, right?
Mhm.
Is the um, coming back into the body and using the body as a gauge almost for, I think you mentioned earlier stuff about your energy, like it gave you so much energy, and it's
Mhm.
like, how does someone know what to do next in the painting or in the book, and often we go back to that, like, where is your energy? And that can be a gauge for, am I engaged with what I'm doing, or am I doing something because I'm trying to control it, or out of obligation or whatever, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's like coming back to within.
it definitely helps to cultivate that inner guidance system that we have. And I'll say this over and over again, man. Before I started the process art, I was so not in my body, and it was almost I was ashamed of my body. I didn't love my body. And as I got into different sort of spiritual settings, the body was something that had to be overcome, like that kind of thing. and
Right.
and now I see the body as a tool, as a guidance system. And I am, and it's, yeah, it's judging where your energy lies is has been such a game changer for me, and it all started with the process art.
Yeah, and I think we both kind of came at it from those similar places of, I also was completely cut off from my body, and it was quite abusive to my body,
Mm.
really. And so there was a lot that needed healing, and almost like a forgiveness,
Mhm.
to myself, of and kind of, and it took a lot of time to get to that place of, like, um I guess trusting, and um I don't know how to put it, but it's like developing that relationship again with the body, and what are those pieces of ourselves, what did they need, like, what does the body need, what does the body need to paint? um it's, yeah, it just has been so healing. And you mentioned the word wholeness earlier. It's not
Mm.
like it's about fixing anything. It's not like about like, it's not about trying to fix dis-ease or anything like that, but really just welcoming home all the parts, all the pieces that we have uh stuffed down or ignored or cut off. And it's like that, I don't know, the word wholeness just keeps coming to me, it's that return and welcoming home all of ourselves,
Right.
and including, and earlier, Steph, you mentioned, like, the shadow, it's like anything that we have been trying to keep away because we feel it isn't good enough or it was judged, even letting those aspects into the art. It's not like, you know I've had some really crazy shit come out in paintings.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
And it's not like we're going to get locked up or something for the stuff that we paint. It's just a piece of paper. And so really it can hold a lot, and we can let out things that we would not tell other people, or we wouldn't act out in the world. And jokingly, people have said to me, "Are you okay?" Like, when they've
Yeah.
seen some of my paintings, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm great because I got this out, and I'm not, um, you know, acting this out in the world or in my life."
Right.
So yeah, it can just be such a catharsis to let some of this shit out. And um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
like
there
dreams. There's crazy things that can happen in dreams. So
That's what I was gonna say, is like it's similar to dream work. I think people have compared it to, a dream journal type of situation. It can seem very dreamlike, sometimes.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, it doesn't have to, but
Mm-mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. Well, gosh, that was probably a lot for people to take in, like, as far as, where we're coming from, and but that is definitely what brought us to the process. And yeah, I mean,
And
it's
yeah, and
different.
it's still just as useful and important today,
Yeah,
I believe, for each of us. And
if not more
yeah,
so.
if not more so.
Yeah,
Like you said earlier, having tools, it's like different tools in your toolbox. And there are many ways to meet challenges and adversity, but having this tool available is something that, like you said, it's a lifelong practice. So, or
yeah,
it can be a lifelong practice,
yeah,
and can be so helpful in times of need. Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Do you have any other thoughts?
I don't think so. It feels pretty good that we were able to, start our very first, whatever you want to call this, podcast or YouTube channel entry or whatever. It felt good,
Yeah,
and it it felt nice to be able to say, hey, this is who we are and why we did what we did and why we're doing what we do now. And we hope that if you're called to this, to anything that we've said, that you will reach out and message us or email us or check out our website or whatever, and just see if it might be something for you too. We would love
yes.
that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, we both write about our process. You know, we have our blogs on the website, and of course, the schedule of workshops. And most of that is online right now, because of the situation in
Yeah.
the world. But yeah, on creativenectarstudio.com, we've got
Yeah. We'll put the
plenty
link
of
down
content.
below.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, cool, Jenny. Did you have
Awesome.
anything else? Do you feel complete with this?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to you, Steph, and uh, just that, this is all kind of scary for me, like to approach something in an unscripted and unplanned, like you said, like we're not really set up with, you know, the kinds of things we could have, and yet this is the practice. Like
Yeah.
this is like showing up to the page. It's like, okay, doesn't have to be perfect, but here we are, and just moving with that. So I think, yeah,
We're
this is
trusting the process.
trusting the process. I mean, how perfect is that?
Yeah.
Perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you, Jenny. And I look forward to doing more
Awesome.
of these and just diving deep into stuff. I don't know what it'll be, but it'll be
We'll
good.
dive deep into something.
Yeah. All right.
Thank
Well, then until next time, we'll see you later.
We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.